On May 2013, the largest tornado in history began its destructive path. Just bad, Gary. Jim, what direction are you looking? Oh, look at that. But the chasers were already caught in its fury. Go, just keep going if you can. Keep going if you can. Everybody duck down. Everybody duck down. Minutes later, the tornado exploded into a monster over 2.6 miles wide, and everything changed. The signs had been there long before it hit. So, let's rewind. It all started back in February 2013 in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. An EF4 monster tore through a city of more than 50,000 people. The tornado leveled dozens of buildings, shredded the campus of the University of Southern Mississippi, and damaged dormitories. This building here at the University of Southern Mississippi stood for more than 100 years, and it was destroyed in seconds. Fortunately, no one was inside. With that kind of force, it seemed impossible to avoid casualties. But somehow, miraculously, no one died. Everything worked perfectly. The evacuation, the warning systems, the first responders. It felt like disaster had been averted. But as you might guess, this was just the beginning. Next, on May 15th, Granbury, Texas, a very powerful tornado killed 6 people. All of the victims lived in one neighborhood called Rancho Brazos. The twister had wind speeds up to 200 miles per hour, strong enough to level homes. May 18th, Russell, Kansas. But at the same time, I want you to know this is a very serious situation. This is one of those deals where this is not just radar indicators anymore. This is on the ground. This is doing damage. May 19th, Kearney and Shawnee, Oklahoma and Kansas. We've got those angled horizontal vortices coming into it from the south side. Gary, this is a big tornado. And then came May 20th, an even harder hit. An EF5 tornado slammed into Moore, Oklahoma. Winds reached 210 miles per hour. Entire neighborhoods were erased, leaving nothing but splintered wreckage behind. It was on the ground for 39 minutes total. The path was 17 miles long, and at its widest point, it was 1.3 miles wide. This time, there was no miracle. 24 people were killed, including 7 children from Plaza Towers Elementary School. It is so hard when you're there, and you see it, and you see the parents waiting and hoping. And then hearing news like that, 24 little ones. If you guys can see this, I don't know how to explain it. How to describe it. This is terrible. This is war zone, terrible. For the people of Moore, it was terrifying déjà vu. In 1999, another EF5 had carved almost the exact same path. This is the donut hole right here. This is absolutely the potential worst-case scenario developing for Oklahoma City. Do not recommend traveling down the Bailey Turnpike, and here's the reason why. This tornado may cross over or even parallel the Bailey Turnpike, potentially for a long way. Back then, 36 lives were lost. This was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the heart of Tornado Alley. Lives were lost, and more than 580 people were injured. It became the first billion-dollar tornado in U.S. history. Now, 14 years later, the tornado had returned, and once again, we weren't ready. People lived in fear. Is this the end? When would they finally be able to breathe again? Meanwhile, meteorologist maps lit up red. A slow-moving front crossed the dry line. Southeasterly winds triggered the mechanism for a new outbreak. The atmosphere was overloaded. High dew points, unstable temperature gradients, and supercells capable of producing violent tornadoes and hail were just waiting. The beast wasn't sleeping. It was only preparing for its next strike. 11 days later, on May 31st, 2013, noon felt like a restless hum before a storm. Forecasters issued an elevated risk alert for Oklahoma with a 15% chance of tornadoes. The city's western outskirts turned into a magnet for storm chasers. Dozens of researchers, journalists, and thrill seekers rolled in, eager to witness the terrible beauty. Soon, both rookies and seasoned storm chasers found themselves in the storm's path. By around 3 p.m., they were already in position. None of them knew they wouldn't be chasing the storm. The storm would be chasing them. At 3:30 p.m., the Storm Prediction Center issued PDS Tornado Watch Nomare 262. A particularly dangerous situation was unfolding, valid until midnight. These warnings are rare. Fewer than 3% of all tornado watches between 1996 and 2005 carried that label. At 4 p.m., meteorologists noticed a cluster of storm cells towering cumulus clouds marching east. These clouds were heading toward Oklahoma City. Within half an hour, the storm reached full assault mode. The southern supercell grew dominant, rapidly intensifying, feeding on heat and moisture. It shaped itself into a hook echo. At 5:53 p.m., the tornado warning went out. A particularly dangerous situation was unfolding in Oklahoma, with tornado watches also for Kansas and Missouri. The severe weather outbreak extended all the way to the Great Lakes. The pace of change was stunning, though it still felt like things were under control. Mike Betts later recalled, "This one's gone up very, very quickly. The more powerful storms that are severe thunderstorm warned are actually due west of us right now. We've heard some thunder and seen lightning off in the distance. Those storms are actually rolling right toward us. So we're going to have to position ourselves in a way to avoid the larger hail cores. They've already put down some big hail." Very quickly, these storms fired up. At 6:03 p.m., 12 kilometers southwest of El Reno, only 10 minutes later, a dark funnel ripped out. The funnel touched the ground. Within moments, it swelled hundreds of meters across. As if the beast's paw hit with the force of nature, it began its destructive path. A nuclear blast. The same ring-shaped scar appeared in the sky. It was easy to mistake it for a curtain of rain, but you had to look closer. Smaller, fast-spinning subvortices darted around a common core, racing human lives to the finish line. 1 second, the storm seemed a comfortable distance away. The next, it was right beside you, ready to kill. Oh man, that's going right at us. Yeah, get ready. From the very start, this tornado had been breaking the rules. Most storms drift northeast. This parental vortex pushed southward, searching for the best place to spring its trap. The low visibility worked in its favor, keeping it hidden. Around 6:07 p.m., the twister crossed Reno Road, leaving its first trail of destruction. Now it raged over open fields. It looked like it couldn't touch anyone here. But that day, the fields weren't empty. Soon, dozens of people would find themselves inside the bear's cage. Some would barely escape with their lives. Go, go, go. Go, Dad. Go. Just go really fast. I know you can't, but you gotta go. Every decision carried the weight of life or death. The tornado's wind field stretched up to 5 miles from the center, making it nearly impossible for drivers to push their speed beyond 40 miles per hour. Picture it. Slick, rain-soaked roads, headwinds roaring at over 100 miles per hour, and no space for a quick turn, especially when the storm kept switching targets. No. Stop, stop, stop. Among those in the Black Jaw's sights were chasers, Brandon Sullivan and Brett Wright. They were driving along Reno Road just minutes after the beast began its hunt. The wind's roar drowned out the engine. Debris from the airport slammed into their vehicle. Visibility dropped to near zero. Their SUV lurched under the storm's fury, and a whole bale of hay from the fields crashed down on the road ahead. 40 seconds decided their fate, and they managed to break free. Behind them, the Twistex crew realized they were heading straight toward the tornado and swerved away. Just half a mile apart, the Dominator team suddenly found power lines blocking their path. They got stuck. The list of those in danger was far from over. When the tornado reached US 81, many spectators had stopped there, thinking they had a safe vantage point. It was only a matter of time before they found themselves on the edge. One of them was local, first-time chaser Richard Henderson. He managed to snap a photo of the massive vortex bearing down, then realized it had changed course, heading northeast, straight for him. He tailed it from the south, trying to keep the distance. After 6:20 p.m., the storm reached its breaking point. The tornado's behavior turned erratic. When the tornado slams into Highway 81 at nearly 60 miles an hour, it's 2 miles wide and still growing. From a mile-wide funnel, it ballooned to a record-breaking 2.6 miles across. With the size came an incredible speed. The stakes skyrocketed as the vortex tore across the fields. It moved faster than most vehicles, nearly 90 miles per hour, wrapped in concentric curtains of rain. Everything around dissolved into a solid wall of gray. I believe it's going to be right back in there, Gary. That's where we're looking. We just can't see it due to the heavy rain that this thing is throwing out, and a lot of hail in this too. Witnesses, watching from different angles, swore the wind began to howl. Nobody could tell anymore where the danger zone began. The condensation funnel was so massive that if you were inside it, you might not even realize it. Just wind and rain until you stumbled into a subvortex ripping at 300 miles per hour. Many chasers, dodging desperately along dirt roads, got far too close. Mike Betts, Austin Anderson, and Kevin Parrish were filming the tornado on the northern horizon. They watched it double in strength. The call to get out was immediate. Their white SUV, with Tornado Hunt on the side, bolted south on US 81. Suddenly, they were inside the beast's mouth. The driver floored it, but the storm closed in from behind. Wind slammed into the vehicle, pulling it into the vortex. "Hold on, brothers. Hold on. Everybody duck down. Go, go, go. Just keep going if you can. Keep going if you can. Everybody duck down. Everybody duck down." The tornado hurled the 6-ton SUV 30 feet into the air. It spatted into a field more than 200 yards away. All three were belted in and miraculously survived. Injured, but able to crawl out of the mangled wreck themselves. Even an armored tank isn't invincible. There was a moment where we were kind of weightless, and I knew we were in the air. It felt like forever, and I had this moment where I truly felt like maybe I was going to heaven. You can hear pebbles and stones and pieces of farm building and corrugated steel hitting the side of the vehicle. And you're talking to yourself. I'm there, and I'm talking. You're not going home in a plastic bag. Next, the monster crept up on Richard Henderson. At the time, he still thought the storm was a mile east of him. A few moments, then darkness. The vortex swallowed his vehicle whole. Later, they would find his phone in the grass with the last photo of the tornado sent to a friend. 6:23 p.m., near the edge of the condensation funnel, 3 groups were caught. The K4 News, Dominator, and Twist X. Dan Robinson, driving ahead of Twist X, saw with his own eyes as the vortex crept up on a white Chevrolet Cobalt. It can't be. They'll veer away in time. But the gray shroud consumed the car. Tim, Paul, Carl, dead. Instantly, the vehicle's remains scattered across the field. They had only wanted to. A probe was placed in the giant's path to collect data for those in Tornado Alley. However, they were too close. For the first time, a tornado directly struck researchers. Dan himself was luckier. His vehicle was spun and shoved off the road. He avoided being pulled into the tornado's inner core. Behind them, in Highway 81, the K4 team. Reporter Emily Sutton and driver Kevin Joseph made a sudden dash north, only for a wall of debris to crash over their SUV. Injured in the hit, but survived. At 6:28 p.m., the monster grew larger, pressing in on the western edges of Oklahoma City. The National Weather Service sounded the alarm for Yukon, Bethany, and the western part of the city. On TV, urgent voices pleaded for people to take shelter. Long-sleeved shirts. Make sure you have long pants on. Make sure you have shoes on. Wrap up in blankets and get in the bathtub or stick yourself between the wall and the stool. This will eventually pass, but this is a very dangerous storm. We see a large debris ball right along Interstate 40. The tragedy had already taught that a basement can save your life, but not everyone had one. On live broadcast, K4 meteorologist Mike Morgan advised those without shelter to evacuate for all of South Oklahoma City, and do that now, or get in your car and drive south. The advice would later bring a storm of criticism down on him. The problem was, I-44 was already jammed. Even earlier, residents had poured into their cars to flee, clogging the highways. A solid line of steel formed on the roads. Being in a car in a tornado is a really bad idea, and you've got to find a place to go. Those still trying to get out now found themselves trapped from both directions. On the horizon loomed a dark wedge. Radar showed it sneaking straight toward traffic. NWS analysts calculated a hit on the packed interstate could have killed more than 500 people. Helplessness, fear, and desperation rippled through every soul caught in this chaos. At 6:30 p.m., while drivers sat frozen in uncertainty, researchers were watching something incredible. The mobile radar, Raxpol, positioned north of the tornado, transmitted jaw-dropping data. Winds inside the vortex, about 300 feet above ground, clocked at 135 to 150 meters per second. That's 313 miles per hour, the fastest wind speed ever recorded. But it wasn't just the numbers that troubled scientists. Our radar revealed something that looked like an eye. Yet NOAA insisted tornadoes are multiple subvortices spinning inside a larger parent circulation. That calm center is typical only in hurricanes 20 to 40 miles wide. So far, it had only been observed in the most intense tropical cyclones. What were they dealing with? El Reno seemed to have formed a pocket of eerie stillness. In this stillness, the subvortices never collided. Instead, they peeled away from each other. These predators inflicted the worst damage. Twistex and Henderson's vehicle were obliterated by such tornadoes within a tornado. The storm crawled toward I-40, choked with unmoving targets. Then, an unexpected turn. It hesitated, as if weighing whether it had done enough. The central circulation began looping along the highway, slowly shifting northeast. It was almost a gift from the sky for those trapped. A direct hit was avoided, but the tornado still crossed I-40 with relatively few cars. Some vehicles were struck, and 2 lives were lost, Maria Martin and her 17-day-old daughter. Later, 20 people with vehicle-related injuries would seek medical help. In those minutes, cars spun in frantic U-turns, driving into oncoming lanes to escape. Even seasoned drivers were rattled. And the bellow of the wind. This chaotic flight would go down as a case study in what not to do when a storm is breathing down your neck. Never drive straight into its path. At 6:43 p.m., after crossing the interstate, the tornado began to weaken, finally dissipating north of the highway. It missed the densely packed northwest suburbs of Oklahoma City by just a few miles. Had it kept its strength and tracked farther east, the outcome would have been apocalyptic. In 40 minutes, it carved a path 16 miles long, officially rated EF3. But radar data left no doubt. It had EF5 winds. Chasers agreed. It had the power. It simply didn't unleash it. That will eventually be revised. The top tornado scientists in the world today, like Dr. Howie Blustain and Dr. Chuck Doswell, strongly disagree with the NWS decision, 135 meters per second, which is 300 miles per hour. This is as strong a wind as we've ever measured at the ground. When the vortex left, danger didn't vanish with it. The supercell spawned several weaker EF0 to EF1 twisters and unleashed giant hail and torrential rain. In western Oklahoma City, just 3 to 6 miles from the tornado's core, baseball-sized hail crashed down. Stones 3 to 4 inches across smashed roof shingles. Shattered windshields, people and animals were injured. 16 cases of impact wounds recorded. Over the next few hours, 180 to 300 millimeters of rain drenched the city. In the floods alone, 14 people died, more than the tornado killed. That evening became a double disaster for Oklahoma. When the rain eased, the whole picture emerged. Farms and isolated structures south and east of El Reno had taken the heaviest beating. Homes near South Airport Road and Southwest 15th Street were utterly wiped out. The El Reno tornado is going to be one for the history books. One of the most studied tornadoes in history, the El Reno tornado, stands out remarkably. What made this monster unique was its carousel of suction vortices, each up to a quarter-mile wide. This tornado was comprised of 2, 4, even 5 or 6 of these massive tornadoes. Smaller, violent suction vortices spun around like a merry-go-round, adding to the chaos. El Reno was the widest tornado in history, measuring an astonishing 2.6 miles across. Not only that, it displayed unprecedented shifts in movement, revealing anticyclonic companion vortices. One funnel spun in the opposite direction, right alongside the parent vortex, for a remarkable 15 minutes. This unexpected behavior ultimately shifted the system itself, demonstrating nature's unpredictability. In response, a pilot project called the El Reno Survey was launched. This was the first project to use crowdsourcing in tornado science. New evacuation routes were drawn, prioritizing safety in storm-prone areas. The right questions were finally asked to improve technology and redefine storm rating. Yet the aftertaste of this progress was bitter. No dataset is worth being injured for or dying for, a crucial reminder. On a dirt road near S Radio and Reuter Road, a memorial now stands. This marks the darkest day in storm-chasing history, a place of remembrance. A reminder that even the bravest and best prepared are sometimes at the mercy of chance. The experience was a real-time horror film, offering rough lessons for safety.